What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Talking Elite Fitness. I'm Sean Woodland, being joined by Lauren Khalil. Lauren, what's up?
Not much. Good to be here and good to see you. We're missing Tommy, but that's okay. Tommy will be here
momentarily. He's going to join us here in a little bit. He and Lauren are speaking with Will Moorad, so we'll have that interview for you here a little bit later in the show. Will, of course, involved with the World Fitness Project. But so we're going to get right into it. First, we want to thank our sponsor for today, which is Thirdzy, the greatest sleep supplement on the face of this planet. Like I said, I'm clearly not in my normal settings. I'm visiting my mother, trying to help her out with some stuff. So I have a bag of Thirdzy that just like stays at this house because I'm here so much. It is, if you're looking up your sleep game, guys, you've heard us talk about it a lot. There's no better way to do it than Thirdzy. Their Rest and Recovery Collagen is an amazing product. It doesn't have any melatonin in it, so it's not habit forming. It's got GABA, L-theanine, magnesium, helps calm your central nervous system, helps you get to sleep faster, stay asleep longer, get the most out of your sleep. And this is important for you masters athletes out there. Helps you recover optimally when you are sleeping. It's a great product, tastes amazing. One of those things that I love having before I go to bed. And right now you can get 20% off if you go to thirdzy.com and use our code TEF, and you'll get on board the Thirdzy train. Love the stuff. Good people who make a really fantastic product. So check them out at thirdzy.com, and you can use our code TEF. All right, let's get into just some basic quick news things here before we jump into Will Moorad. First off, we'll start with just the fact that Velites is back as the apparel and jump rope and grip sponsor, I think, of the CrossFit Games. Pretty much the same role that they played last year. Not the title sponsor, but a partnership that returns for 2026.
Yeah, I think that this is a good thing that they want to return, and they saw success in the games last year in the partnership that they're coming back for, like you said, footwear, grips, and jump ropes. Even though I know last week we talked about, one of our big questions leading into this year is there going to be a returning title sponsor like we were used to before last year? And while this isn't the title sponsor, it is good to at least know that they are a returning customer, essentially, that are coming back. They see value in the partnership. And even though this isn't like the title sponsor, which we've grown to get so used to, I think it is at least a step in the right direction, that we're not just seeing, okay, another new brand. People aren't returning. So I think it's a half C. I'll give it a half C point for.
I think to your point, it's a really good one. The fact that they're bringing people back into the fold, consistency is key. How much churn have we seen over the past, couple of years of sponsors in, sponsors out, different people showing up. So I think any sort of consistency from year to year is a good thing. It helps you build momentum and it helps you attract other sponsors. So,
Agreed.
Okay. Open registration has begun. Our good friend Mike Halpin, if you're not following him on Instagram, his handle is @known&knowable. He posts on his story like a running tally. Let me see if I can put this one up here, because he has his first story up right now after the first day of registration. So 18,000 people for day one. And if you go to his Instagram, you can't really see it on the screen right now, but there is a small, tiny yellow dot at the bottom here. And the numbers on the x-axis, those are the days away from the open. So we are 42 days away from the open, and that little yellow dot, 18,000 people. So we're pretty much right on track with where we were in 2022, which was about 275,000 people, looks like, give or take, signed up. So that would obviously be an increase from last year. Any increase, I think, is going to be a good increase. But if you're looking to stay updated on what's going on with the open and registration, Mike Halpin is a great follow for that.
Yeah. And I love that even like when you let this Instagram story play out, it breaks it down by registration from each country. And then he has, I think, like the top 5 affiliates that have signed up so far with their participation. So a lot of good stats and data that he tracks throughout the push to the open.
Yeah. So I got good news. I'm injured, but I'm not like too injured. I have a partially torn TFL in my hip. It's like a little teeny thing. Like,
oh, that's ligament. What the MRI said?
The only reason, no, I did an ultrasound. The only reason I can remember TFL is because that's tackle for loss. So I know that, so I don't know what that stands for.
Same but different.
I don't know what stands out for in anatomic terms, but they're like, the doctor said, you're not going to need surgery, but you probably need to rehab this. And so far, as long as there's like no excessive running in the open, I should be good to go. So,
okay.
Yeah, looking at getting back. scheduling, there's a few things that anyway, doesn't matter. But got good news there. So I was a little worried about being on the shelf with an injury, but no surgery, so that's cool.
Okay, that's definitely a benefit.
Yes.
To
Okay.
your open score.
Next thing, and this is going to lead us into our interview with Director of Sport for the World Fitness Project, Will Moorad, is that the World Fitness Project announced their season structure for 2026. So they're going to have 3 tour stops again. First one's going to be in Mexico City. Second one is going to be in Indiana. And then the third one, once again, will be in Copenhagen. I was actually kind of surprised. I thought they might try to add a fourth one.
Me too. I think that they didn't, though, was probably the smart choice with especially when you want to give athletes the opportunity to still compete in not just the game season if they choose to, but also, the Wadapaloozas, the Rogue Invitationals, some of the other higher level off-season competitions. And I think by sticking to 2 tour stops, because you also, if you're in I know it's not called the Challenger division anymore, they structured it a bit, but giving opportunity for athletes to do the online qualifiers and that kind of stuff. I think that sticking to 3 total was a smart move. My only caveat is having the finals still the week before Christmas. I don't know that I love that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I've said before, what I would do if I were them, I'd bump it into the beginning of the year, around like right now when Wadapalooza used to be. So as we kind of start ramping up for the Open, you can capture some of that excitement and kick it off with the biggest event of the year. Kick it off with kick the calendar year off with your championship event. And obviously that is easier said than done, because you need to work around venue schedules and you need to make it, for everybody, and people that might also cause people to say, well, actually, you know what? I don't want to do it that close to the Open because I want to be, but my argument there is that elite athletes can, fall out of their bed in the morning and qualify for quarterfinals. Like, it's not like it's that hard. I mean, it's 3 workouts over 3 weeks. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean,
was it last year where Tia was competing against Shane and gave him like a 5-minute head start to see if she would catch up? Yeah. So, I mean,
we're fine. They're going to be just fine for the Open. If this were like going into a semifinal, totally get that.
Different.
But it's really not going to mess up their schedule that much. Yeah. So,
but I also think having it open in Mexico City is interesting, because we know that those fans, they know how to party.
Yeah.
They will come with flags and signs and fill butts and seats. That I'm really excited to see what that venue and location holds for it.
Yeah, and you can talk to Will a little bit more about that when we have him on. But I think one thing that I like about the World Fitness Project, what they're doing is leaning into audiences outside the United States. 2/3 of their season are outside of the U.S.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mexico City is going to, like you mentioned, that's going to be a great environment, and we know what Europe is and how they still show up for these events. So give them credit. They're not afraid to get outside of the U.S., which seems to be inundated with events. So, all right. Well, without further ado, Will Moorad is the Director of Sport for the World Fitness Project, and he sat down and spoke with Lauren and Tommy.
All right, we're joined now by our guest for this week. He is the Director of Sport and the man responsible for some of those really cool performances, at least on the programming side, that you saw in season 1 of the World Fitness Project. It's Will Moorad. Will, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today, brother?
Yeah, I'm great, man. It's a sunny day in Nashville. I'm home, which is always a good thing. But yeah, I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Let's start with 2025 reflections, right? Because some as we speak, announcements for 2026 are rolling out. But let's take a look back. Big picture, a few things. What are the things that you look back on season 1 that you were most proud of, that you can confidently say, hey, we got that right?
There's a lot that I'm proud of. Of course, we didn't get everything perfect, but I'm proud of the way the team came together in a really short time frame and was able to execute on the product that we were able to deliver to the public, and do it 3 times in a short window. I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of the communication that the team had and the transparency that we had with each other in order to, sometimes you got to leave your ego at the door and just do what's best for the job at hand. And we all were able to do that. So I think in year 1, that's a really important thing in building a strong culture within a company. So I think that is something I'm proud of. On the tour specific side of things, I think we built on every tour, and we were able to see anything that went wrong in tour one and try to fix it in tour two. And then the same thing in tour one and tour two, fix it at the finals. And the ability to adapt to criticism, whether it's right or wrong, or things that we didn't execute great on, was another just sign of how good the team works together and how open we all are to doing what's best for the company. So I think more or less that covers it. Really just proud of the team. I think the athletes loved it. I think the fans, especially in Copenhagen, once we built momentum, it was out of this world. And to be able to cap off the season in such a special way in Copenhagen with the European crowd and some of those races that came down to the wire, and even the final season standings for the females was tied. So we got to do tiebreakers in year one, which is exciting for storytelling. So yeah, I'm proud of everything. It wasn't perfect. We know that. We made some mistakes. We did some things great. And we're just excited to roll it back or run it back next year or this year now.
Yeah.
Do it all over again. So yeah.
Well, I mean, first of all, congratulations on getting through an entire season. Anybody who has run even a local event knows that a lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into that. I'm sure Jason Ansley has been a great person to lean on talking to about events, as he's run, Monster Games and a couple other ones. But, looking at the season as a whole, and, we already have a lot of information getting into 2026, which we'll touch on in a minute. But what is one of those things that after the year was said and done, you thought, okay, maybe this wasn't perfect, but we are able to change this for 2026?
I think the biggest thing is probably combining the challenger and pro divisions and making sure that everybody's doing the same workouts, working towards the same points on the leaderboard, and refining the point system because of that change. We had the two different point systems this year because we had separate competitions essentially under one roof at Tour 1 and Tour 2. And it worked out okay. It became a little confusing at the end of the season when we were doing the points with the dual leaderboards and stuff. And we had already decided to make this change at Tour 2 this year. I think we might have spoke about it, Tommy. But we had a meeting with a bunch of the coaches, and we proposed this type of a point system where, if there's 6 events, there's 600 points for Tour 1. And if you win every event, you have 600 points on the season. And if you get 542 points, then you have 542 points on the season. And then the same thing at Tour 2, you'll get those points added to your Tour 1. And then at the finals, you'll come in with that total. If you win every event up to the finals, and say there's 6 events or 7 events, 6 events we'll go with, there's 1,200 points. Then every workout at the finals, which is worth 100, you'll just add to your point total for the season. So it's just really clean. And I think it makes every single placement within every single workout really, really matter. Down to, the second, because you saw how many close finishes there were, and that's points on the leaderboard. So we were able to do that a little bit with the current point system, but it just won't be as tight as this one will provide us. So I think that was probably the biggest thing that we changed from a sport facing standpoint, that the athletes will feel. It'll be a tangible change, but not too different than what they experienced this year or in 2025 season.
Yeah. And that's interesting. One thing you mentioned is that you brought the coaches together, right? So you're talking to coaches and kind of key players in the space with those changes as you're starting to get feedback. And honestly, by Tour 2, you're middle of the season and you're looking forward to next season. You're already getting that feedback from them. Why is that important for you? And then 2, what was the primary feedback that you got from coaches specifically? Because a lot of them, some of them are opinionated, outspoken publicly, but a lot of them, kind of keep it close to the vest because they feel like there's a lot of proprietary information in the space.
Yeah, I think it was just an opportunity to talk openly. There wasn't us telling them, hey, we're going to do this. It was just, hey, these are some ideas. These are ways that we can improve the sport. Does this make sense to you? And we went down even to how we're going to allocate the points within one workout, right? It's 100 points for first place. how do we allocate, or how do you decline the point value per placement? So I think it was just an open forum to kind of hear what they thought might be the best thing. We talked about workout design. We talked about adding in different implements to the season, whether they'd like that or not, like road biking or open water swimming and that type of stuff, and where they sat with that. And I think being able to have a collaborative effort and not just kind of dictate, hey, this is what we're going to do, is important. That it's an easy thing to set up. We were all at the tour. All the top coaches and top athletes were at our events. Let's talk to them. If they want, it was an open invitation. They could not come or come. But it was, I thought that conversation was good. Not everybody showed up, but quite a few of them did. And it was good. It was me, Jason, and Roger, and then from WFP, and then all the coaches. So I think, and a lot of those guys hit me up throughout the year anyways and ask questions. So it's not like that's a one-off. There's a lot of those conversations going on just via text or phone calls or emails and things like that, or DMs on Instagram. So yeah, just being open to feedback and applying stuff that makes sense to them, and then hearing their feedback on what we think could be cool for the league.
Yeah.
What has this year and experience like been for you though? Because this is such a different hat that you're wearing from the previous Will Moorad that we have all, seen grow up in the space, being a competitive athlete. And now you're running a season of competitive athletes.
Yeah, it's been a quick but fun evolution. Putting something together to this caliber in the time that we did is a lot. And it was a huge learning experience for myself and the team. We're lucky to have guys and girls on staff that have had a lot of experience at high level events, whether that's, Jason, who's run events for a decade at a really high level, and is just an amazing person, or Hanu, who's running our head of production. And he is open to interpreting the vision that I had maybe for storytelling and things like that. And all the way down to team leads that have a ton of experience, and they know how to communicate with the athletes on game day and make sure they're comfortable, whether that's, athlete control or medical, or even our equipment leads, who have a ton of experience doing things on the fly, mix and matching plates so they make sense for the production and weight changes and stuff. So it was a lot. I think I learned a lot, and I would say it was pretty natural though for me. I've always been someone that's loved sport, not just, CrossFit or fitness or whatever you want to call this. It's just been a part of my life for a really long time. And I've always thought it would be cool to maybe help contribute to a league in some form or fashion. Me and some of the older guys would joke around about like, man, I wish we could help run the CrossFit Games or something like that. So to be able to, slide right into this role, which is maybe a dream role for anybody that has been a pro in the space for as long as I have, when they step out of the competitive realm, it's been really good. It's been a blessing. And I'm grateful for the people I have around me that lift me up and empower me to make right decisions and tell me if I'm doing something wrong. And, the accountability is really good. So I couldn't be happier with the role that I have with World Fitness Project, and being, one of the core team members that helped start this thing from quite literally a whiteboard in Hawaii. And actually it was in my notes. And then it went to a whiteboard in Hawaii. So yeah.
Oh, that's so fun.
It's been a wild ride. And now it's a massive engine, chugging down the tracks, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
That's awesome. I love those little moments you reflect on, hey, like this was an idea on a whiteboard, and then it became the seed that was planted that's so much bigger. I want to talk about the opening of 2026. We had conversations on this podcast, on the Pulse, on a bunch of the media that was done about potentially expanding the scope in 2026. Ultimately, schedule gets announced, at least as far as tour stops are concerned, same amount of tour stops. Why the decision there? What was kind of the factors that ultimately played into how many events that you held for this second year?
We went back and forth doing 3 tours and a final, or sticking with what we were going to do, sticking with what we did this year. And I think it made most sense just for year 2 to stick with 3 big events, because it is a lot to bite off, and you don't want to take over too much of the calendar in some respect to the other events. You know, WFP is its own entity, and we are running a league, and, you know, we can't always consider everything that everybody else is doing because we are running a business, but we try to do our best to play nicely with everybody. And we've spoken to everybody, and, you know, I think all of the entities that are running events in the space understand that. We're all trying to do a reasonable job to not pick from each other. So it takes a lot to do that in a perfect way, and it might never be perfect, but I think that's probably why we stuck with 3. It was effective. It wasn't too much on the athletes from just WFP standpoint. You know, we're providing them 2 qualifiers for some of the athletes and then 3 competitions, and that's a lot of competing, and then they can decide to do the other stuff if they want, or vice versa. They can do the game season or Wadapalooza or Rogue or any of these other events, and then decide to do some of the WFP stuff as well. And that's up to them. But as one of the guys on WFP and creating the season that requires 3 events, I think 3 was good to stick with for year 2. Would I love to do 4? Yeah, I think having an event every 3 months would be really cool. It would be like an actual tour. You know, having 4 events like tennis or golf that are the majors is kind of a cool thing as well. But for now, it's going to be 3. We'll try to, there's plenty of stuff that we can improve on and make sure that the Tour 1, Tour 2, and the finals are even better than they were in 2025. And I think that's the number 1 priority. And then I think as we get a little bit further down the road this year, we'll start making more decisions on whether we're going to bump that up to 4 or keep it at 3 for the 27 season. But
yeah,
3 is good. We know how to roll with that. Everybody's knows what that workload looks like and feels like. So let's get another year under our belt, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, and you did mention something there real quick that I wanted to touch on. You mentioned communicating to the other players in the space, right? Like, you know, kind of getting a feel of like, hey, we're trying to be respectful to the timelines and everything like that. Where would you say the communication and status is with that? Because I think a lot of the chatter early on, and especially for the last couple of years, is that people aren't talking to each other, right? Like people aren't communicating or reaching out or, you know, getting on the same page, or at least those communication channels aren't as open or aren't being utilized the way that they should. Would you say that's been a distinct change?
I think the way that that's been perceived in the media is not actually accurate. And I'll say that.
That's fair too. Yeah.
I think, you know, at the end of the day, everybody's running a business, and that there's a lot of stakeholders involved in all of those entities. And with WFP, we are a little more nimble. You know, it's easier for us to make decisions and to go one way or another, whether that's collaborating or not, or running our own season or not. And not all of the entities in the space operate like that. And it's none of my business how they operate. You know, they're all of them are pretty successful. So I would say that it could be cool in the future to have more of a uniform season where, you know, Wadapalooza or the games or Rogue, they can contribute to the season in some meaningful way, from a point standpoint, from a prize purse standpoint, from a production, and maybe we all come together and it's like a TV deal sort of situation. But that's just a pipe dream right now. You know, right now I'm focused on WFP and making sure that WFP becomes the premier fitness racing season in the world. And from all stretches of the imagination, we are already, because we're running 3 tours in one season with top athletes, and no one else is doing that. So, and no one else is trying to do that. So we are kind of our own little thing within the competitive fitness realm. Like Games Track is awesome. Rogue is awesome. Wadapalooza is awesome. And we're just adding to that with a little bit different flavor with the league and the points and all that stuff.
Cool.
Then logistically, like, what does that look like? I want to get into the brain of Will and the rest of the team, because you have this the tour that you want to successfully put on. You want to continue to give athletes the most opportunities that they can have earning potential, whether it is WFP plus the games, Rogue, Wadapalooza. Like, you get this calendar that has so much on it. So what is like your process going through deciding on venues, deciding on where the tours are going to be and when the tours are going to be and how that's going to intermingle with everything else that's going on within the fitness space?
Yeah, I mean, this year we had our season pretty much done by July-ish. And then maybe it was July or August. And the some announcements came out that were right on top of specifically our Tour 1. And that became a deal breaker for us because we didn't want to limit athletes that wanted to compete in both seasons, whether it's CrossFit or Wadapalooza. So we moved and we chose, I mean, our Tour 1 is still sitting on a semifinal, but when we looked at the athletes that are participating in WFP historically, those two semifinals impacted our Pro Tour the least amount. And that's kind of the way it went down. Like we had one a little bit closer to Mayhem, but if you look at the Mayhem roster, and I have a great relationship with Rich and those guys, a lot of those guys and girls are doing WFP as well. And you got to think about how much these guys and girls are going to compete. I'm assuming a lot of them won't do as much as they did last year, but they'll probably do more than they would typically do. Whether they cut, 1, 2, 3 events that are on their schedule, depending on how many. I don't know the semifinal rules right now for CrossFit, but if they can do a bunch of them, they might continue to do that. So, I think that was part of the process and making sure that we were off of that as much as we could to impact the least amount of athletes as possible. So that's what went down with Tour 1. Tour 2, we knew the games was going to be earlier, so we actually gained a couple weeks away from the games to Tour 2, and that's going to be at Grand Park in Indiana again. And then the finals was pretty much agreed upon a year ago to bring it back there. So and that doesn't really affect anybody, but that's kind of the process. And we kept the dates pretty close to what we did last year, the qualifiers and the actual tour events. So having a season that mirrors what we did in the past pretty closely, it was important just for continuity of the season. And that's a lot of it is like, you can guess Rogue is going to be around Halloween, or you can guess, I mean, Wadapalooza moved this year, but historically they were in January, or the games is going to be around the first weekend in August, last weekend in July. So you can kind of plan that way as well to avoid those. Same thing with semifinals. But as far as the volume of athletes competing, the caliber of athletes competing at tours, it's always going to be a little bit higher than just like a regular semifinal. So it was less of a factor to impact a semifinal than it would be to impact Wadapalooza or the games or Rogue, just from a roster standpoint.
Yeah, I dig it. And looking at the first tour stop, Mexico City, part of that warms my heart, and representing Latin America a little bit, even though Mexico is part of North America, but the Latin culture, I think that has been kind of bubbling in the last, we'll say, 7 to 8 years. Why was Mexico City a good hosting spot, and how did the decision to lead off the second year there come about?
Yeah, so we were between Mallorca, London, and Mexico City. And we did activations in all those places, and we know the communities there. And it really came down to London and Mexico City at the end of it. And when we went to Mexico City, sorry, my Roomba's talking. Can you hear that?
Wow. Yeah.
Just faintly. Yeah.
I was hoping it wasn't like a security breach.
I know, me too.
Yeah.
Who's breaking into Will's house right now?
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be like the movie Taken. All of a sudden, Will just like goes
disappears.
Alert. Sorry. Yeah. So we went to Mexico City to do a bunch of activations because there's some gyms we work with down there. And I forget what the date was. I think it was maybe June. And it was incredible. We had 100 plus people at every one of these activations. We ran a run club on a rainy, cold Sunday morning and had like 100 people show up, and they were just all about it. And I think, and the relationships we have with gym owners there and guys that run events there are really, really strong. And they kept saying, please bring a tour to Mexico City. Please bring a tour to Mexico City. And that's kind of all we needed was for the what's the best word to do this, for the spark to maybe let us look into it a little bit more and do some site visits and things like that. And that was that. London's also a super vibrant fitness community, maybe the biggest in the world right now from what we've seen with all the hybrid stuff that's going on and the CrossFit stuff that's going on, and Athex is there, and like all these really cool fitness communities and the running community there. It's really, really cool. But I think to break into a new market, and we were already going to Europe for the finals, to break into a new market was important to the WFP as well, just because of expanding what we do and bringing the pros to a community that may have not seen that caliber of athlete all competing on the same floor at the same time, and may have never been able to see it had we not decided that. So yeah, a lot of factors went into Mexico City. And I mean, I think for me personally, the activations and stuff were the deal breaker. I was like, man, we probably 500, 600, 700 people across that week when we were doing activations. We had a couple of ladies that went to every single one. Like, they're super, super fans, and that's what you want to support your league. And when you see that type of stuff there, and then what we saw in Copenhagen, it makes you want to come back because it makes it special for everybody involved. The athletes were raving about how awesome the fandom was in Copenhagen. And that alone can help you as a company make a decision. You just see that, you feel that, you see the guys and girls that are busting their butt on the floor for you, the athletes, enjoy the experience that much, and you want them to be able to have those experiences again and again and again. And that's what makes the league legit, right? Like that connection, crazy fans, cool experiences. We're all kind of coming around fitness, which is what we all love. And Mexico is going to be no different than Copenhagen. I hope it's even bigger. I hope we can sell 5,000 tickets instead of 4,000 or whatever we did in Copenhagen. So,
I mean, I expect them to all have signs and the flags and a strong cultural representation, because anytime that like you think of semifinals and exactly where that community is centered, because they yell and they scream and they love it in a way that is so authentic. And that's what you want for your event. That's the type of fanfare that you want. I'm curious though, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. I was just kind of like, I played soccer a lot growing up and throughout my young adulthood, and the different countries you'd go and play in and stuff, it's always a different vibe what the fans are going to be like. Yeah. And that's a part of it. Can you create an event in Mexico City that has its own flair of fandom, whether they're, they got the horns or whatever they are. Think about like a Mexican League soccer game. It's madness versus, a Premier League soccer game in England. They're all awesome and rowdy and fun, but they celebrate the sport in a different way that's unique to their culture. And I think to be able to bring that into fitness is something really cool. And it's actually, the World Fitness Project at that point, right? We're expanding the experience beyond just what the sport is. We're expanding it into the cultures and the communities that we're touching in different parts of the world. And that's fun.
Yeah. And I certainly could feel that from not being in person at Copenhagen. I could feel that through the screen, whether it was watching the live stream or like the clips people were putting on Instagram. You could feel the support internationally. But speaking to Copenhagen, while I was daydreaming and looking at everybody going to the Christmas markets after they were done competing, were there any concerns again about having the finals the week before Christmas and having people travel that time of year?
No, not really. Sport at its core is entertainment, and pro athletes have been competing on Thanksgiving or Christmas or on holidays for as long as I can remember. And I think that it's a privilege if you're that good of an athlete, to be able to be on that floor at that time of the year. Like LeBron James plays on Christmas how many times, you know, and he probably wants to be sitting there with his family, but it's a privilege to be an NBA player and be able to play on, you know, national television on Christmas. And it's the same thing for our guys and girls. Like if you're on the pro floor in Copenhagen in December of 2026, it's because you're one of the best in the world and you earned that opportunity. And, you know, most people are at home hanging out with their families, and that's amazing. And they're going to be watching you. And that's amazing too. So being too close to the holidays. Yeah. I mean, we talked about it internally, but that's ultimately the decision that we came to. You know, it's a time where a lot of people are home and they'll probably be watching TV, or they're off work and they might be able to come watch the event more easily. Or if they're on teams or stuff like that, they'll be off work and they can come compete. So it almost is easier around a holiday to have a cool experience because of those factors. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I sit and where the team sits with it.
You put the image in my head when you mentioned Mexican League soccer, and I can't get the images out of my head of watching it growing up. And the screen on TV is almost hazy because people have lit off so many flares that have been like tossed out onto the pitch, and you hear horns. You're like, yeah, where's the game going on behind it? Because it's just that crazy. And for some reason, I don't know. I just pictured.
I hope not. I hope there's no flares there.
I don't know. I kind of half pictured like James running around with a flare while he's, you know, finishing his last leg of a run or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe we'll do flares at like the podium ceremony or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
that'd be fun.
That's probably safer. But as far as like results, I think you touched on an adjusted point system, which is obviously going to have an impact on results. But ultimately, I feel like this year kind of showed how fitness over the course of the entire year can play out. Is there anything that stood out to you about where the results were, maybe an athlete that surprised you, or anything that played out on the leaderboard? We're like, didn't expect it that way.
Maybe not. I didn't expect it, but I think guys, like the guys and girls that were able to get pro cards that came through the Challenger qualifiers, and that storytelling, you know, Jack Farlow and Tudor Magda, both challengers in Indy, pros in Mesa, and then pro cards after Copenhagen, are pretty much the essence of what that system is. And it should give belief to the next generation that they can come in and earn a pro card if they commit to the season and show up, even like last year, even if they were in the challenger division, because it is possible. And that's a cool opportunity. And I think that's also another part of the market thing. I know we stopped talking about that and expanding into new markets, but I think it's important to bring these guys and girls to new markets to show the next generation what's possible. And that was always super accessible in the States for a long, long time, seeing the best athletes on the floor at the games or Rogue or Wadapalooza, all on the floor at the same time. And that can be really cool for a young guy or girl to see and be like, hey, I want to be like them. Now we can bring that to them in Mexico City, in Copenhagen, in Grand Park in Indiana, and, you know, whatever other markets we go to in 2027. But yeah, that, I think Jack and Tudor come to mind. You know, Ella Wilkinson, Lydia Fish, Andrea Solberg, Linda Kiesman, Hannah Black, Annika Greer. I'm doing this off the top of my head, but like all those people came in and took pro cards, and that's a big deal. And, you know, they have security that comes with that pro card financially for themselves through WFP, and then from being able to sell themselves to brands like, hey, I'm going to be on these pro floors with WFP at these dates in 2026. And it makes them a more valuable entity for those brands to invest in. So you're creating really cool career opportunities for these guys and girls. And that's important to me. It wasn't something that was necessarily as easily as accessible as it is now when I was competing. So to be able to be a part of the team that's executing this for this next generation is special to me. And, you know, those stories, all those people I just mentioned, they're proving that it's a real thing and it's something that's valuable to them and the way that they lead their lives, which is ultimately the most important thing, right? You know, you're helping people out and helping them chase their passion and make a little bit of money while they're doing it.
Yeah. And speaking of that last point, and also, I mean, obviously earning a living is part of being a, you know, quote unquote professional athlete and wanting to pursue that as a profession. I pretty much in like the last, hour to 2 hours of this, since we've been recording, the announcement for the prize purse for the next season has come out. There's I think a 21% total increase for the entirety of the purse across the year, with purse increases at each stop as well as the finals. I think a lot of times people see prize purse as a proxy for the health of the business when it comes to sport. I think that is true for, you know, the NFL, the what name a pro league or a pro sport. If prize purse is going up, athletes are making more. They view that as a sign of health. Where are things as far as like that decision to increase the prize purse, the ability to do that, and where you think the health of the brand and business is now for WFP? I'm going to leave that kind of open ended to take it where you want.
Yeah. I mean, that was always the plan from day one, was to increase it in year 2. So that was nothing like we just decided to do. It was always in the plan. And I think, you know, the support of sponsors and things like that are helpful in making those decisions and validating those in the business plan. But yeah, it's a good sign that everything is going great, and it's a good thing for the athletes to see that. And I think even the way you look at the structure of how we do the payouts, it allows the product to be a more viable career for everybody participating, because the payouts are pretty close. You know, if you look at the end of the season leaderboard, and I don't have it pulled up, but I guess I pull up Instagram. I think we just posted it, but you know, it's $100,000 and then it's 70, and it's pretty tight all the way down to, you know, it goes down to, I think it's $4,000 for the lowest finishers. And I think that those athletes being able to come to these competitions and make some money and be in the green is important. And it takes away the glorified hobby nature of what historically has been in the space, you know. And I think that's what we want to do, is make a viable career for more than maybe the top 5 or 6 girls in the world. Make it for the top 30 guys and girls in the world, or at least give them a little bit of money so that they can actually try to chase this dream. You know, 25 grand or whatever is not going to be enough to live off of, but it's more than what you maybe would have made in the past. It's a lot more for where you finished. So that's improvement. That's driving up the value of WFP, and it validates the league in a big way. So yeah, and the ability to increase that was always the plan. And now being able to, you know, announce it to the world and show them what we're doing and how much we care about actually growing a pro sport is cool for us. And yeah, I'm excited. It's always fun to do those posts, because a lot of people like looking at that stuff. And
yeah,
you know, we sent out all the athlete contracts too, so they're all reading through those. And yeah, it's real now. It's real deal. It's not just small.
That's awesome.
So then you just said you have contracts out to athletes now. Do they have a specific deadline of, hey, we need an answer at this point, otherwise, you know, we backfill, or like the process of that? Yeah,
absolutely. So we sent out the top 20 guys and girls their contracts. They have 10 days to decide if they want to do it. If not, you know, we'll backfill into the 21st through 30th places with those contracts, and we'll go on from there. So yeah, it's exciting. We're solidifying the pro roster for 2026 as we speak, which is always a good thing. The athletes that finish 21st to 30th at the finals are also going to get an invite to Tour 1, which is cool, just to reward them for showing up and doing their thing. And then they get an opportunity to, you know, maybe make some money and get some points towards the tour right off the bat without doing a qualifier. And then we're also going to invite 5 athletes in to join us in Mexico City. So we've sent out those invites, and we're waiting for, you know, confirmation of participation and stuff too. So all the invites are set out for Tour 1, and for the, you know, the contracts. And then we'll have an additional 15 men and women qualify through the online qualifier in February to round out the field of 50. So
did you have certain data points you were looking at for the invites, or was it like you guys sat in a room and it was like, okay, write the athlete that you want to see and then have a debate, or what was that conversation like?
Yeah, certainly. There was athletes that got injured last year that had to pull out of the season that we approached about maybe having an opportunity to compete in the tour. There were athletes that, from our estimation and all the other competitions that they've competed in, deserve an invite, whether they were injured last year or didn't compete last year. So we reached out to them and extended them an invite to the tour. And then, we have some people pending being accepted or declined on the invite that we'll reach out to for invites as well. So yeah, it's really to reward the athletes that participated with us last year with, the 21st to 30th. And then it's to keep the quality of athlete really high with the invites, and I think what we would do is, I would assume that the guys and girls that finished 21st to 30th were probably going to sign up for the qualifier, and now they don't have to. So it's going to actually open up more opportunity for athletes that maybe wouldn't have done the qualifier to come in and maybe get a chance to compete with the pros. So we're opening it up to maybe a different field of athletes that maybe just missed out last year, weren't really planning on doing it because they didn't think they had a shot or whatever. So it's cool in that way. A lot of different angles on that, but it should be a pretty strong field in Mexico at the Mexico City Pro.
My last question, and thanks as always for being so open about everything, and being willing to hop on and basically just chat on everything. But is there any markets in particular that you're excited about exploring or maybe looking into this year? Because you mentioned earlier in the interview that by July and through all the site visits, you had a good portion of this season locked down. Is there any kind of areas of the world that you're like, I think we can maybe tap into something there too?
Yeah, there's a lot. South America would be cool. I know we're doing Mexico City, so that's an extension of Latin America, but South America would be cool. I think Asia would be cool. And then maybe like Southern Europe would also be, and Eastern. I mean, we talk to people everywhere. So we'll be doing activations in all of those places I mentioned this year, and kind of exploring those markets and making relationships with people and things like that, and seeing if it's a viable opportunity for a tour in 2027. But nothing's been decided yet, but we're always looking to expand and try to make a decision that is exciting for the fans and the athletes, but also smart for the company. And all of those are very viable options for next year, but we'll see. I'd love to bring an event to Nashville.
You could sleep in your own bed. That's nice. Yeah. Somewhere Jeremy Austin is crying because I know he wants something down in Australia, so he doesn't have to travel.
And Australia. Yeah, Asia, Australia. Absolutely.
Yep. Well, right on, Will. Well, thank you so much again. Looking forward to seeing how 2026 plays out. We're excited to see the growth of the sport, the growth of WFP, and hopefully, bigger and brighter steps as we move forward through this second season overall.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Great chatting with you, Will.
Yeah, you too.
Like a kiss at the start of a first date. If it's good, I don't want to wait. When the feeling's right, I'm taking everything.